Yeah, man, it's finished. It sounds so good too. I love it. It's a loop, right? So it's still going, but it's gone back to the beginning. So, and yeah, man, I love it. It sounds so good. I'm so glad. I like the here too. The here. Wow. The end here too, because it does something really. I think it's pretty cool. Let's jump back here. Ready? Right here. Yeah! That's cool. You know what happens there? You know why that sounds so fucking cool and so interesting? Because it changes from a 3/4 time to a 4/4 time. Yeah, man, I like it. It's cool. So, anyways, yes, I finished that song finally. It took a little finagling. I had some problems. What kind of like hampered the production with it for a little bit of time. It was kind of demotivating. Was the drum kit that I used. I guess I've never really used it in like a pianissimo section of a song, because I never realized that apparently that within the drum kit that I use, the samples themselves have this hiss in the very, very top end. And it was really, really noticeable during the quiet part here, where the drums. Once the drums come in, it's here at this part. So here, the drums are really quiet and everything's really quiet, and it was just so incredibly noticeable that there was just this hiss that was just so present, and I was just trying to figure out how to deal with that. I was considering maybe just changing drum kits to one that doesn't have that, because it's baked into the samples of the drum sounds, so it's like, I just have to change drum kit is what I thought. But I did actually do some EQing, some processing. I had to like restructure the way the drums were done in the track. So kind of going back to my old school way of that I've done drums for forever. It wasn't until I moved to Reaper, which if you've been keeping up with my streams, that was not that long ago. Prior to switching to Reaper, I used to basically have an individual track for each individual piece of the drum kit. So I'd have a snare track, a kick track, a hi-hat track. There are more efficient ways of doing this. There's a lot of people who do still prefer having it like that, but there's more effective ways of basically having control over each track, I guess you could say, without actually having completely separate instruments. Like each one of these tracks that I have are entirely separate instances of Contact, my drum player. So it's like multiple instances of Contact, which is just not ideal. It's kind of messy having to do things that way. Since moving over to Reaper, I've actually just, I guess it's laziness, but I've mostly just stuck to processing all of my drums on a single drum track. So basically, instead of having this track is the hi-hats, this track is the snare, this track is the kick, whatever, it's just like, here's the drum kick, or drum kit, and everything's just there. I don't have as much individual precise control over all of the instruments in the kit, but, you know, I just realized that it wasn't completely necessary to have full control by separating into other tracks. However, with this song, because there's that noise that was, like, in the high end, that hiss way at the top of the frequencies, to get rid of it would mean having to EQ off parts of like the hi-hat. So like if I remove that hiss, I'd also remove some of the sparkle and shine in the hi-hats, and obviously I didn't want to do that. So I needed to separate everything, so I was able to target the hiss for each individual part of the drum kit. So yeah, anyways, because of that, this whole story is just to say, because of that, it was kind of demotivating, and then it also just took, you know, like basically retooling how the track was done. Well, the drums really. So that's part of the reason why it took so long to actually finally finish that song, but I'm actually really glad that it is finished, and I can't wait. Just like when I finished the boss song, I can't wait to implement it into the game and like see it in motion. But yeah. On that note, because I finished that song there, one of the reasons why I also wanted to finish it is because it's sort of like the going to be the thematic backbone for how I write a lot of the remaining music in the game, because it's like the core version, like the main version, I guess you could say, of both Fiddle's theme and I guess you could say this game's theme. I've talked about this in the past where there's like a theme for this game and there's like the Fiddle theme, which I had made like, I don't know, a year ago or something now. And this is sort of the mashup of those two. And so anytime I want to use those themes in different contexts, I now have kind of like a blueprint, which is what this song is. This song is like the blueprint of how those themes can connect. So with that said, I'm surprised I got another song finished, but it was really simple. It's short too. It's really short, but it's effective, and it was easy to produce. So might as well just show that off too. So let's just do that. I did unmute myself, right? Yeah, I did. Okay, all right. Just making sure I'm not talking to myself this whole time. And it just loops. So yeah, there it is again. So yeah, that is, oh, I just realized I've had it on my face this whole time. It doesn't matter. I mean, you just see the spectrum analyzer on my screen, so it's not a big deal. But anyways, yeah, so I got that song finished yesterday, I do believe. I think I had finished the like the main theme itself. I think I finished that earlier this week. Oh, maybe not. I think it was probably more towards the middle of the week. Because I totally forgot. I didn't even put this in the title. I have new art assets too, sort of, that I sort of kind of made. Not really. I don't want to make it sound like I'm taking credit for any of this. Let me bring up my live stream here on YouTube just to make sure everything's working fine. Yeah. Yep. Okay, good. Let's open up RPG Maker and we can just talk more about this. So yeah, this has been a busy week for stuff that has gone on. So we loaded right into it. So yeah, I talked about this before. So last week, I was talking about the forest and how I was just really annoyed with how the shadows work, how the shadow tiles work on these tree parts, these tree pieces. And so just feeling really demotivated by how annoying it is to like get the shadows to work right and all that I just kind of gave up on this. Like, I'll just deal with this later. It's a problem for future Nolan. I don't feel like dealing with it right now, so decided I'm going to move my attention. I still want to start working on the levels because for the most part the main city is like kind of done. Like, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done here in the city, but it's kind of an on again off again kind of thing that will just need to be built over time as the levels are built up as well. So like, basically what I'm saying is the work that I can do on the city right now is finished until I have some more stuff implemented. I am actually glad to say, while we're here in the city, the whole intro, I do believe is complete. There's a few bits and pieces that need to be filled out, but like I guess you could say the core path that most players will take has been finished, and I've even gotten to play through it now. It's really cool actually seeing like everything kind of like move together from like title screen until like player has 100% full control, like ready to play the game. And yeah, man, it's cool. It feels good, man. It feels good. Like it feels like a game, you know? It's cool. So I've already played through that, and things are looking good on that end. Can't wait to show that off at some point, but unfortunately not yet. So yeah, did that. Obviously, again, that's not anything I can really show. But I mean, I can show that. That's not yeah. Anyways, it's over here, right here. All of this. Most of this was written last time I came on stream, but not 100% of this was written. So there's been some more stuff added to that. There's some more NPCs here, but I'll come back to them because I was trying to get to talking about the levels. So yeah, so I've added the southern path here. So if you go from the city and go south towards the beach, first you have these corridors. This is how I plan on dividing these, separating the city from the levels themselves. It's not 100% necessary that I have these corridors there. However, it kind of allows for what would you call it? It's like I think in computer terms it'd be like asynchronous computing. So there's like a number of things that need to be checked to do my player scaling and stuff like that before the well, it doesn't need to be before, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to be checked to do the player scaling and enemies and stuff like that whenever the player enters the level. And rather than have all of that be computed upon entering the level, I've kind of created these corridors, as I'm calling them, to sort of like turn on the necessary switches and set the correct variables before actually entering the level. So once you enter the level, the enemies, all those scaling factors should already be set the moment you enter the level. So basically you could, in a sense, consider this kind of like a loading zone. And like I said, it's not 100% necessary. It's not like there's really tough calculations that are going on, but I talked about this last time too, where like you get weird frame timing issues with RPG Maker when you have like all these parallel processes going on. And I'd rather just avoid it. It's not like the game is going to crash. It's not that I'm worrying about the stability of the game. It's just that it's not pleasant to play. And having an unpleasant, like unsmooth gaming experience on a fucking 2D RPG Maker game, just like, no, there's like no excuse for that. So rather than even take a chance of having that kind of performance problem, I've just, you know, all the calculations, like all the stuff, the variables and stuff that needs to get set happens here in these corridors, and then the player can move on to the level. And when the player moves on to the level, everything's already set for them. So there's plenty of space for other necessary parallel calculations to happen for like events and puzzles and other stuff that may happen during the player's exploration of the level. And we're not wasting any of that time calculating other stuff that can happen before the level. So yeah, I hope that explanation makes sense. You can see I was actually kind of testing some of this stuff out here. That's what this setup here is for. It's just for debugging purposes. This switch right here is just to set the player level. I think it bumps the player's level up by 2 because if you remember, I explained how the enemy scaling goes. It's just so much easier because I'm lazy partly. Rather than having these really messy, like a ton of enemies, the way that I have done enemy scaling in this game, let me put it this way. There are some more efficient ways. I thought of a more efficient way of handling it last night. But since I've kind of already play tested and verified this system that I have now is working and it's totally fine, I'm going to stick with it. So that being said, I know there are more efficient ways of handling this. However, this is the way that I've decided to handle enemy scaling. And basically, rather than having a mess of checking, like, if the player is 1, use these enemies. If it's 2, use these enemies. If it's 3, use these enemies. If it's 4, use these enemies. And it just becomes this really long list of if statements to set the correct enemy, the correct battle type. And then I have to make, like 10 different versions of that same enemy that has different amounts of health and different attack and so on and so forth. So rather than doing that, I've simplified it. The max level is 10 in the game, which really makes this scaling thing easy to calculate for me and keep balanced, and really kind of fine-tune the way that, the difficulty curve. And so the way that is that there's just 5 ranks of enemies. So it's like rank 1 is player level 1 and 2. Rank 2 is player level 3 and 4. Rank 3 is player level 4 and 5. Rank 4 is player level 6 and 7. And rank 5 is player level 8 and 8, 9, and 10. Something went wrong there. It should be player level 9 and 10, but whatever, you get the point. There are certain milestones every 2 levels, and at those milestones, it changes or it scales the enemies up with the player. And rather than having these like rigid stair steps that happen every 2 levels. First of all, it's only 2 levels, so it shouldn't feel that rigid. But second of all, that's really mostly controlling just their health pool and the amount of experience and gold that they drop. That's pretty much the only factors that happen in scaling up enemies because of the way that I've done their attack calculations. Their attack calculations, by default, even at level 1, will scale with the player. So basically, as you've seen, like it sets the scaling of the enemies when you enter this corridor. So let's say in a case that this level here is probably pretty big and the player might be here for a long time. So there is, in all likelihood, that while the player is exploring this level, that they will exceed the milestone, but because they have not returned to the corridor to recalculate what enemies should scale, that means the enemies will never scale up even though they've passed the milestone. And so in that case, you would think that enemies would just become really, really easy. They might to a small extent, because their health pool will still be small. Like I said, what happens with the scaling up is that their health pool will definitely increase. However, the actual attack power of the enemies pretty much stays the same. Like, it scales with the player level. So even though the milestone, let's say for example, is at level 3, if the player's level 3, then the enemies scale up. But if they haven't actually left the map and come back, then all the enemies are still going to be at the first milestone, or the milestone 0, I guess you could say. But these enemies are still going to be hitting as if the player is level 3. Their health pool just won't reflect that. Does that make sense? I feel like I've overcomplicated this. I hope that makes sense. Anyways, the point is these crystals just kind of are visual indicators to me to tell me which scaling rank they're at, starting at 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So yeah, so I was playtesting that, and then you can see how that works over here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 enemies, and this is not that there's 5 enemies just wandering around this area, but actually only one of these enemies will be present when the player comes in. I'll actually show this off in just a minute. However, I wanted to talk about this tile set. That's actually originally what I was working towards. So, I should mention that a lot of the tile sets I've been using, for example, this city, I actually purchased. It's one of the DLC available for RPG Maker. And I think the artist is called like First Seed Miracle or something. He seems to be pretty popular Tileset Maker. So I'm sure longtime users of RPG Maker have probably seen his tiles before, or anyone who's played in the RPG Maker games may have potentially seen his tile sets before. However, this tile set here, for those who are, again, familiar with his stuff, may not be 100% familiar with it. It may look somewhat familiar, but like something is off, and that's because I had this vision for what I wanted this level to be. I've talked about it. I've talked about it in some of my previous streams. I wanted it to be kind of like, almost like a Zelda dungeon, but also a very, very open-ended Zelda dungeon. So basically, I see this level being broken down into two halves. The first half is the journey, which will be fairly linear, the journey to acquiring a boat, which is what I've been working on here. I haven't even finished like the first room of this, but you can kind of see like the path will come through here, over here, and then this area right here will transition to another map. I won't be using any of this over here. I did make this map a little bit too large, but that's okay. I'd rather have more tiles than not enough tiles, so that's totally fine. And then there will probably be, you know, like another path, maybe a couple of puzzles, then a mini boss, and then they'll make their way back up, but now on top of this cliff here, and eventually that's going to make their way over to like a boat. And that's where the second half of this level will happen, where basically you have this giant fucking open ocean, and your goal is to find like, I don't know, like treasures or whatever that will unlock the area where the final boss is. And so they need to go to the players. They need to go to these islands that I may scatter out in the ocean, and they need to find that. There is some challenges with that I've already thought about that I will discuss further if I remember later. However, again, back on topic with the tile set. The vision I had was this stormy, rainy, rocky coast, you know, and I browsed and browsed and browsed all over, like all of the DLC tile sets on RPG Maker, as well as just searching for 2D tile sets available for other game engines, or just Google searching RPG Maker tile sets, you know, like, you know, I looked at Game Maker tile sets, Unity tile sets, RPG Maker tile sets, and just like looked all over the internet, and I just couldn't find any sort of tile set that was a rocky coast, which kind of surprised me because I felt like a rocky coast is not that outlandish of an environment. I did find one kind of nice looking beach tile set, which, you know, I thought maybe I could make it work because it wasn't exactly a rocky coast, but it did have like a bunch of like shipwrecks and debris and stuff like that I could still make a pretty dramatic scene out of, even if it's not rocky. But the one problem is that I'm not going to call this art style realistic, because I mean it's hard to call like fucking, you know, sprite art realistic, but I would say this sprite art is rather detailed. And the problem I had with the other tile set, the beach tile set, was that it took a more minimalist approach to its detailing. There was still some detail in the art assets. Like, it wasn't super minimal, but it still was far more cartoonish in the amount of detailing that it had, which just clashed way too much. Like, I get it. I'm buying pre-made assets for my game, so the art styles are not going to match 100% perfectly, but it was just like I couldn't even justify it. Like, it would be way too different of an art style that I couldn't go with it. And so I was thinking, well, maybe I could buy that tile set and then hire someone to like modify it to make it at least seem more detailed and kind of match the First Seed Miracle, or whatever the fuck it's called, art style. But then, like that, I didn't actually get any sort of quotes. I was looking on Fiverr, and they'd go pretty high, though, to be honest, for tile sets like that. So, and it was sort of like, I'm willing to put some budget into this game, as I already have, because I've purchased assets and stuff and plugins, but the game is still pretty small in scope, and so, like, $1,000 for a tile set is sort of beyond this game's budget. So after thinking about it for a while, I realized I could probably take the best parts of the tile sets I've already purchased from First Seed Miracle and just like smash them together into a completely new tile set. And that's what this is. It's mostly, I would say 90%, maybe 95%, just asset, like this tree from this tile set and this rock from this tile set and these plants from this tile set, just like, smashed into a new tile set. And that's what 90% of it is. Actually, 100% of it is that. But 90% of it is just unaltered tiles from other tile sets. The other 10% are still tiles that I took from other tile sets. However, I did alter them slightly to make it kind of meet the color palette or whatever the style that I wanted for this area. Color palette and style, I should say. So, like, for example, like this grass here, like you can see if we go to here, you can see I've used it here, but it's a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more lush and green. As well as the grass is actually the same, probably this same grass here, but you can see it's way more duller here. So, I did some color correction on them. This sand dune, I guess you would say, doesn't even exist in the in any of the tile sets. This was actually I don't know what to call it. Like, I used some sort of color processing technique in Photoshop, blending mode. I used a blending mode, that's what you'd probably call it, as well as various stuff to make it look like a slightly more dune-like, although it still looks kind of rocky, but whatever, it doesn't matter. So I did that, and I put some gradients on the bottom of some assets here to make it look like it's kind of sand covered. You have these, I don't know what you'd call these, but these parts that you put like ropes on at ports that I kind of added some sand details on. You can see like they're kind of blasted with sand, coated with sand here and like here. So, I kind of added some of that detailing as well. You can really see it on this one here. So, yeah, but for the most part, what it was, I don't know what the limitations are for, tile sets. But I basically just tried to keep the tile sets in the same resolution, like the same sized tile sheets, and just stuck with that. Like, this is the size I'm given. I don't know I think it might be possible in RPG Maker to make your tile sheets much larger, but I'm not even going to fuck with it. I just I use that limitation to try to be as precise with what assets I take from other tile sets and put them here. Because if I'm going to put one tile from this tile set, I can't just like bring all of the tile sets and put it onto one super long sheet. Instead, I have to pick like the best parts that represent my idea and put them into the new sheet. And that's what I did here. It took a long time. It really took a long time. I started my week off working on that. And I almost had a feeling that by the time I was going to catch you guys up, on this stream about what I did this past week, it was only going to be me saying, well, I spent the week merging tiles into a new sprite sheet. So, fortunately, I did get it done, and that's because it didn't take a lot of time to do sets D and E. Yeah, D and E, and C, because C, D, and E are just copy and pastes from their respective tile sets. Like, I didn't alter anything except for on D and E. I think I did apply some color filters on them just to make them a little bit more, at least have some of the correct color palette that matches the rest of the areas. So yeah, D and E just had that color correction, but are otherwise copy and paste from the tile set they came from. C had no corrections at all. It is just a direct copy and paste from the tile set that it came from. So it was really just sets A and B that had all of the merging done. And both of those did take a very long time to put together. I've had Photoshop opened throughout the week because I would bounce back and forth between Photoshop and working on this level, so that way I can alter some tiles, like if something looks a little bit funny. For example, this sand dune was actually in my first round of when I first merged all the tile sets together and was happy with it and decided to start working on this map. This dune was not actually there, but I really didn't like how flat the beach would look, and so I wanted to kind of create some like verticality to it, some like ups and downs with it. So I actually tried to figure out a way to make a dune, and I just explained that process. I used there was like a quarry or some sort of other part from the tile set that I altered the rocky ridge of the quarry into using color blending modes and another tile. I actually layered this sand tile around the edge and used color blending modes to create kind of a sandy look to it. So yeah, I've been bouncing back and forth, like having to alter some tiles to try to get them to fit at least slightly better with this So, and it's not perfect. I don't expect it to be perfect. As I've mentioned before, this game's scope is still fairly small, so like I hope that you folks can maybe forgive like one thing that kind of bothers me, and maybe if I get really anal retentive about it, I might come back and fix it. I might not. We'll see. But either way, if I don't fix it, I hope you guys would be willing to forgive. Like, if we look at these rocks here, they kind of look like they've been sandblasted. But then we look at these rocks here, and they don't have that same kind of sand detail on them. And it's kind of like they slightly stick out as, like, not quite coherent with the rest of the area. But at the same time, they're versatile because it's supposed to be a rocky coast. And I do plan on like doing some more stuff with the rocky cliffs here, where those will not stick out as much. So, because of their versatility, it's like I don't know if I want to add the sand detailing on it. And I'm sure I could maybe create. I'm sure I have space like here. There's an empty tile there. If I wanted to do a couple of versions of these rocks, I still have space in the tile set to maybe make duplicates of a few of the rocks, if I wanted to. But again, like I said, I hope the people who play this are able to see the limited scope of this project and maybe are willing to let that slide. They wouldn't be so anal retentive that they're like, oh, well, that's clashing with the environment there. I don't think it's okay. I do think it's okay. So anyways, yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out so far. Again, I've been kind of bouncing back and forth to Photoshop occasionally to have to make some alterations to the tile set, but so far I'm very happy with this. So yeah, I've worked on, you can see here, I've mostly worked on like this area here, and I want to add some more details here. It looks a little bit sparse in this region right here, and going from that region over to basically this little pond here is still kind of like needs a little bit more detailing. And then I haven't worked on any of this. And then, like I said, this line here, which I will change, but it's just there to remind me, is that this is where I think that the player will transition to another map. And this, when they transition to the other map, will be about finding the stairs to go up on the cliff. That will be the goal of that. One of the things I do kind of want to do is like maybe kind of introduce the boat to the player before sending them out into the vast seas here. So I was also kind of thinking maybe it might be kind of cool to like have a small little like lake or something, just like a small version of this that the players can navigate in the other part of this level. To kind of introduce how the boat works. It's not like it's complicated. The boat doesn't really have like, it's not like there's like weird sail controls, like it's not a simulation or anything like that, but I think it does kind of introduce them to navigation, because this is a great segue into talking about one of the problems that will crop up with this big ass fucking ocean. This is a top down game, and if I just scroll up like this, this is what the player will see. How the fuck do you know where the islands are if you can only like scroll this way? Like you'd be basically having to like, basically like a lawnmower action is like go this way and then come back up, and you'll be sweeping just back and forth trying to find where the islands are. It's imperfect. So I'm aware of that. And so that's one of the reasons. It's like the lake would kind of introduce like, when you get kind of out into the water, it's kind of difficult to find what way to go. There's a few ideas I have on how to deal with this. One, which I would just call the default method in the game, is that I think at somewhere maybe in that lake, maybe the lake could almost be like a reflection. This is actually totally just came up with this on the fly just now. Maybe that lake can be like a reflection of the seas, but on a smaller scale. So like there might be like little rocks in the lake that kind of like indicate roughly where you might find the islands in the sea. That's one option. I also thought about having some like sort of, where is it? Like this one's like underwater, but I think there's a version of it that's not underwater. But yeah, like this little tablet here, this one's like the not underwater version. This little tablet here that might have some cryptic hints that the players are just going to basically have to keep notes of, that kind of give riddles on how to navigate the ocean, how to find it, like so many paces to the east and then so many paces do something like that. I don't know. That's one of the options. That was my main idea, and that would be what I call the default option. However, one of the things I want to do with these levels, all three of them, is that because I want there to be some sort of like connection between what you do in the community and what you do in the levels, and I want it to be small. I don't want players to feel forced to. Excuse me. I don't want players to feel forced that they have to engage with the community stuff to be able to get the best experience out of the game. I kind of want a lot of the community stuff to be very subtle, And so the main thing is if it feels like the players have to engage with it, then it's no longer subtle. So one of the options I thought of doing was, and coincidentally, and I guess I should go ahead and mention this too. I don't even know if it's still available. I'm sure you've already heard of it from other folks. There's this a bundle for Ukraine that's going on itch.io. and I purchased it. And totally coincidentally, I didn't even know this when I purchased it. I just purchased it because just supporting the cause, if you will. And didn't even realize, but when I was browsing through all the games available on there, is that there's a Minimap plugin for RPG Maker MV. So one of the ideas I was having is that maybe it would be possible for, if not the Minimap, I had another idea actually before the Minimap. Either way, the idea is that if the community rank is happy enough, or you've completed certain quests, or you've done something within the community, then the player would have an opportunity to get a map of the seas, which would help them navigate it. And that would kind of be a small, but still somewhat significant bonus towards players who took the time to, take care of the community. Which is kind of like I said, like it would be subtle. You don't need to feel forced, because there is going to be, as I said, the default way of navigating the seas, which would be a little bit annoying, but still a viable way of navigating the seas. So my first idea was basically just I thought there was a way of exporting a map within RPG Maker, but I couldn't find it. I must have been thinking of something else, or maybe that was a function in the new MZ version of RPG Maker. Either way, thought about just like basically taking a screenshot of this if there's not a way to export the map, and then I don't know, probably apply some artsy filters in Photoshop to make it look like a map, and I can just put it as a PNG and do a common event. Why is it? Okay, that took a while to load. That was weird. Anyways, just basically make it a common event that basically you have an item. When you click on the item, it'll call up the common event, and the common event will just display the map, so the players can just constantly open and close that, which sounds a little bit irritating, but whatever, it's fine. It'd help them navigate it. So that was my first idea, and then like I said, for the Ukraine bundle, I saw that there's that Minimap plugin that actually was included in it, and I was thinking if it has plugin commands within its plugin that allows me to enable or disable the Minimap at certain times, then that would be great. The player acquires the map, however that may be done, and basically when they acquire the map, basically what it does is it just enables the Minimap for this level, which would be really great. And again, it would be like a reward, a small but still significant reward for players engaging with the community aspect of the game. So yeah, so that's one of the ideas that I had for the problem of navigating effectively a blue screen. I will add some detail. This is one of the things I might need to go back into Photoshop too as well, is I only have one, I guess you could call level of water deepness is just this. Usually, like if we go to here, you can see there's like a, let's zoom in a little bit. You can see that there's like a slightly shallow water, and then there's like deeper water. And the problem with my ocean tile set here is I don't have the deeper water. And I think that would help at least create some variance in this swath of blue. So I may need to go back and add that tile to this set. That's definitely something I was thinking about. So hopefully make it a little bit less blue, and that would also allow me to create some sort of like soft, subtle indications within the water. For example, like I could create a underground rift, I guess you could say, that would basically point to where the boss's chamber is, boss room or whatever that you're trying to unlock, you're trying to get to. So it'd always be easy to navigate there once you get all the items. And then, of course, I could make most of the body of the ocean like deep sea, which would also be a possibility, although that wouldn't work with the rift. But anyways, and And then obviously I could use the slightly more shallow water, this lighter blue color, as you approach closer to an island, which would also be a subtle indication that, hey, you're approaching an island, you might need to move south or a little bit more east or to the west or whatever it is. So anyways, those are all different ideas that I'll have to work with. But yeah, anyways, that's the tile set. Now the next thing I wanted to do, we can also kind of walk around this tile set, because the next thing I want to do is show off something else that's been implemented. I wanted to show off how the enemy scaling works, as well as a tutorial. So let's go ahead and just run the game. Put that in full screen. And we'll do continue, because I have a save right here. So if we head to the south, like I said, we'll go to the beach. And when you first arrive, you have this event. I don't mind showing this off because this is just really more of a tutorial event. So you'll see, this is like your combat tutorial. This is how it starts. See, I'm pretty proud that it pauses the music here. And then you get an explanation of like, hey, here's how the confidence system works. Fiddle needs confidence in order to use powerful attacks. There are several ways to build Fiddle's confidence. Your basic attack command will restore a flat amount of confidence points, or Con P, with each attack. If an enemy strikes Fiddle, she will also restore a small percentage of her total Con P. But most, but not all, enemies' attacks will restore some amount of confidence. You can also use the guard command to restore a percentage of Fiddle's confidence, as well as reduce all incoming damage. Keep in mind your enemy's confidence too, as enemies follow the same rules as Fiddle, so your attacks may boost the enemy's confidence. Play around with this for a few turns. I'll be back to teach you about state stacking. So that's how that's the first part of the tutorial. So this first part is really simple. It's just allowing the player a chance to see how the confidence system works. I kind of like how this tutorial goes. It's basically just like, here's a sandbox, have fun. At this current point in the tutorial, it is impossible to kill the slime. So I do think, like, one compromise with that is that people who don't care about the tutorial, who don't want it, still have to put up with it. Even if at the beginning it asks, do you want to know about the confidence system? All that really does is just speeding through the text. You still have to go through this part, which is still kind of a tutorial. So then this pops up again, pauses the music. I like that. Fiddle will stack elemental damage to increase her damage output. Would you like to read the tutorial on state stacking? Fiddle has access to 3 elemental skills. Repeatedly attacking an enemy with a single element type has a chance of stacking states. The more elemental states you stack on a single enemy, the higher your damage of that element type will be. For example, if you attacked an enemy 5 times in a row with a wind attack, there is a chance they may have 1 or more stacks of wind susceptibility, and thus attacking with another wind attack will do increased damage. However, attacking an enemy with a different element type will remove all stacks of the current element. For example, if you attack an enemy that currently has 3 stacks of wind susceptibility with a fire attack, all 3 stacks of wind susceptibility will be removed. Elemental stacks will also disappear after a certain number of turns have passed. Each enemy, except for this slime, have their own weaknesses and strengths to certain element types, while each element type also has a distinguishing function when multiple states have been stacked. You can discover the secondary functions each element has for yourself, or you can read more about elements and state stacking in the big book at the library, which actually hasn't been implemented yet. But be warned, these rules don't just apply to the enemies, they also apply to Fiddle. This slime is pretty healthy, but not dangerous. Try exploring the elements while you finish this fight. So again, I kind of like this tutorial because it's basically a sandbox for you to just explore the elements. To allow you a chance to explore the element types for this fight, and this fight only, Fiddle will have bonus Con P regeneration. So now the players basically have full access to using all of their skills, which I feel like hopefully will give them a chance to try using all of them. There is a couple of problems that I don't know. I'm sure I could brainstorm a way around it, but it might be overly complicated. That actually, I know some ways that I could do this that are overly complicated, and because they're overly complicated, I don't think it's worth implementing for just a tutorial. But basically, here's the problem. Players, first of all, the 30% chance, as you can see, that each of these skills have to apply the state. I've had streaks of really bad luck where I could go 10 turns in a row and never apply a single stack. So there is a chance that players who are in this tutorial may never even see the states stack. So in that case, yeah, that's a problem. Secondly, if the states do stack, they might not stack enough states, especially like the Faraday Surge, the shock ability, to see the secondary effect. Because, I mentioned that there's a secondary effect. We also talked about this last time. So they may not notice what the secondary effect is within this tutorial, despite me saying, like, hey, this is your chance to explore those. So there's a few ways I could handle this that I just don't feel like doing. There is a add and remove skill command that I could just apply for the battle, and basically in the battle's controls, basically remove the default game versions of each of these skills and add special tutorial versions of them that have a higher % chance of applying the susceptibility stacks. But I don't want to do that. That's complicated. So, and it would make my database really, really messy with tutorial versions of these skills. So, I don't think I'm going to do that. Instead, I just gave this slime a lot of health and just crossed my fingers that most players will will figure this out for themselves. And hopefully, if they don't figure it out, then they'll either be smart enough to go to the library, like I already mentioned, or at least understand what was explained within the text. So, yeah. So fortunately this time, like, I applied the susceptibility first try. That's actually kind of rare. So hopefully they'll realize that, oh, this wind susceptibility lowers their confidence. Like they lose confidence each turn. So then hopefully players will try stacking another skill, or they can also try healing, because there's also a mechanic with that as well. Just like with all the other magic skills, there are stacks. And effectively what happens with healing is that it heals an amount and then applies a stack of health regeneration. And the health regeneration by default is very small. However, more stacks you have will increase that health regeneration per turn. I really don't see players using this very much to their advantage, though, because it can easily be removed. It's counted as an element, just like wind, fire, or shock. So if an enemy attacks Fiddle with any of those elements, it will just remove all your health regeneration stacks. I only put that effect there, the stacking states with health regeneration, just for consistency. Really? Like, all your other magic skills apply stacks, so, why not? There may be chances players find it useful. And maybe as I develop the game more and, make bosses, maybe I'll find it, useful, but I I just don't see it being that useful. But whatever, it's there. So now maybe players can see, oh, fire damage does damage over time. Well, something else I kind of just thought of as well. It's like, if I do the health regeneration stacks for enemies that heal, that would also be extremely pointless because I think most players are going to be trying to dish out elemental attacks as often as possible, which means they'll probably pretty quickly remove any sort of regeneration stacks that the enemies try to build up. So yeah, there's that. If we continue this way, I have to apologize to players in advance because I know it's like a cardinal sin of game design is always make sure that the player faces the way that they exited the room. So I have to apologize in advance because, as you'll see, we're now looking up. Even though in the room before we were moving down, south. We were moving south. Oh, he shouldn't be back. He should be gone. Whoops. Ah, that's okay. Is there anything with him if I talk to him? No. Okay. I'll have to look at that later. But anyways. Yeah. So it kind of flips the camera around. But that's just because... Oops. That's just because that's the way I envisioned this map not coming from the top. Like, I envisioned the player trying to move up towards wherever the boss is and looking up at the sea. Like, this feels more right for the level. So, I don't know. I just guess I had to break that rule. Yeah. So anyways, you'd come over here, and you know, there's an enemy there. So he will try to move towards the player. Oh, I was testing something with the... You'll see the exclamation mark there. I was testing to try to give some sort of indication that the enemy is going to move towards the player. However, I can't find an effective way of doing that. What's on him now will probably be removed because it constantly spams the exclamation mark every time he moves, which is I just don't like. So yeah, yeah, I wonder if I just had an idea. I'd have to do some custom art, but not a big deal. Rather than it being an animation of like the exclamation mark popping up, because the problem with it being an animation is that it's constantly playing like the first frame or just the first 2 frames. It keeps recalling that. But if it was just a single frame, then it would just kind of look like a static element above their head. And rather than have the bubble around it, it could be kind of like a sort of like a Metal Gear Solid kind of exclamation point, where it's just like not a bubble, but just the single exclamation point. That's it above their head. And that way, as long as, even though it's constantly refreshing it, it's not a super big deal. At least it kind of seems like it doesn't seem like a bug. It seems like intended. So maybe I'll try doing that. I think you can add user-defined bubbles. So maybe I'll try doing that and just making it a single exclamation point. So yeah. Anyways, right now, if I fight him, I guess I do need to fight him. Let's show off what he's at now. He should be rank 1. Yeah, so these are your rank 1 enemies. I've done some work on like the balancing of the combat, but The thing is that all of this is so early that I'm probably going to have to change it no matter what. So I didn't work too hard on balancing combat just yet, because the likelihood of things changing later down the line is pretty high. So rather than spend hours and hours focusing on something that's going to be changed, I just got it to a good enough point, which mostly involved balancing these enemies' like health and attack and stats like that, and not so much on the player's power. So yeah, I've so far designed 2 enemies. The Jelly makes a return. His previous role in the first game was mostly as sort of a support unit to the other guys, as well as kind of a support unit to Fiddle, but in kind of a backwards sort of way. It could only, in the first game, it could only really attack Fiddle, which it would do it twice, and that was done deliberately because it was to boost Fiddle's confidence up quite a lot. Because of the restructured confidence system in this game, relying on enemies attacking Fiddle to boost confidence is not as necessary. So he doesn't attack twice in this version. And instead, he's able to focus on the other role that he was known for, which was supporting the other enemies in the group. A support role, like I said. In the previous game, he would heal his allies. He does that in this game as well. He also has a new feature that is specific to this game, because one of the main mechanics in this game is state stacking. So he also has a skill that will clear all states. So yeah. Let me first heal. So, like I said, this is all not fully balanced yet. It was just good enough. Thankfully, that was a critical hit. See, there's his heal. He will only use his clear state skill whenever he actually has a state applied to him. And I think he's more likely to heal himself than clear the state, if I remember how the logic goes. So, he healed himself again. He may try to remove the state this time if I don't kill him. Nope, instead he decided to attack. Okay. So yeah, one thing I think I want to do is, because I can, like I mentioned before, I can kind of more tailor the difficulty curve, because there's only just a few milestones that the enemies rank up towards. Like, I can't imagine like trying to tailor a better difficulty curve for like Skyrim or Oblivion, because there's just, the player has like the max level is much higher, plus there's a ton of different enemies and different spawns and stuff like that. But fortunately, in the case of my game, the number of levels that the player can reach is much smaller, and the number of enemies that exist in the game is also much lower. So it's much easier to tailor the difficulty curve despite using scaling enemies. And one of the things that I was thinking about with the scaling is actually, you know, enemies will hit softer, but have more health, percentage-wise, during the earlier levels. So, like, during the first rank, the current rank we're on, the red rank, I guess you could say, percentage-wise, they'd have more health than the later ranks. That way the player doesn't kill the enemies super quickly, and has more time to kind of explore the elemental functions within the game and state stacking and stuff like that. But then as the milestones go up, the combat becomes more visceral, I guess you could say. Like, it becomes a little bit more faster pace, but the damage becomes higher. So their health pool won't increase. Like, the biggest jump in health pool is going to be just the very first state. Like, they're going to have a lot of health at the very beginning, but the increase of health to the next milestone will be pretty small, and then maybe even smaller to the next one, and even smaller to the next, and even smaller to the last one. Which that way, it'd kind of be like combat speeds up as the scaling happens, but what's also going to increase is like their initial attack might be really low, but then at the next rank, you'll be slightly higher. Next rank will be even higher. Next rank will be higher. And then the last rank will be super high, like the jump, the scaling. So that way, by the end, players need to like really know what the fuck they're doing. That's one idea I've had with the scaling. But again, I'm not really working on balancing too much. Right now, it's a very linear kind of progression. Like, they start at this health, and they pretty much gain like a flat amount each level. And I kind of played around with that number too to find the best linear progression for each level. So I think it's like 12 plus, or it's starting at 12, and then I don't know. I don't know what the algebraic function is, but basically it's starting at 12 and increasing by 2 each rank. So the first rank is 12, next rank is 14, next rank is 16, next rank is 18. So, yeah. Anyways, let's show how this thing works. So as you can see right now, the red rank is still present even though I've gone up. But if I refresh this scene now, like right now, if I go attack the enemy, it's still going to be the same rank. In fact, I can show that because there is a run command, so I don't need to do the whole fight. I can just go in there and say, look, it's the same enemies, and then run away. So see, it's the same enemies. So now let's escape. And then we go back. And then when we come back in here, you'll see, oh, now we're at the yellow rank. So now if we go to those enemies, you will see that they have scaled now. It should be different enemies. Ta-da! Now the mouse has yellow ears and the jelly is purple. So you can see how that works. So that's how the scaling works there. And again, we'll go back. And we'll level up. Now we're level 5. We'd be at the next rank. I'll refresh it just to show that off. I'm actually not going to go fight the enemies. So now we're at the green milestone. It's level 7. We'll go to level 9. We need to refresh the scaling calculation. And like I said, that's going to be within this corridor. So leave, come back in. We're at the max rank. We can leave now because it's calculated the new scaling. And now, when we go here to fight the guy, there we go. It's a new set of enemies. So that's how the scaling works. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. I like seeing the scaling function in action. So if we close this out real fast and we go to here, you can see that there are 5 instances of this guy. And so each one is more or less exactly the same, but then you can see the battle processing is, you can see the R1 there. So Jelly Team R1, Jelly Team R2, Jelly Team R3, Jelly Team R4, Jelly Team R5. So I was mentioning earlier that I've thought of an easier way of doing this, and that was I could just do an if, if you can see there's already a switch here, enemy rank. If enemy, so instead of turning this event on, I'm using switches to turn on or off these events. So these are events that are getting turned on or off using switches. But rather than putting the switch to turn the event on or off, I could actually just put it here as a conditional statement, and basically saying if this switch is on, then do this battle processing. Or if this switch is on, do this battle processing. Or if this switch is on, do this battle processing. Which, would kind of clean up this mess here, but it would probably be fine. But the reason why I don't want to do that is because then this event list gets really long. Like, I don't know. It might be better, because another frustration is, like, sure, I might have a long, annoying, like, if collection here in a single event. The one thing is that I've mentioned this before, whenever you want to do, like, for example, movement routes or something like that control an event, this list of events becomes unbearably long. God, I wish RPG Maker had like a search function, like just clicking on this and then just typing in whatever event that you're looking for just to make it pop up quickly, because having to scroll through super long event lists is a nightmare. And that will probably happen using 5 events for one encounter. So, yeah. The one thing that I worry about, and I haven't prototyped this yet in the sandbox, or even here, it doesn't have to be in the sandbox, is that normally when you have an if like that, again, I've mentioned this before, you get weird frame timing issues in the game, because it's basically checking if that if statement is there. No, okay, moving on to the next one. Is that if statement right? No, okay, let's move on to the next one. And then when you have a bunch of other parallel processes going on in the background, suddenly, like, it's not going to be a super long wait, but there is going to be like this moment where the encounter is getting ready to start. The player has touched the bad guy, and so the battle should start. But because you have this list of if statements, it doesn't just snap right into the battle. Instead, it kind of hangs for, a fraction of a second. It's not a lot, but I don't know. It looks unpolished, and I don't like that. And with this method, I can actually, I'm not even going to say I think, I can guarantee that there will never be any kind of hangs like that using this method here. So, I don't know. I think I'm going to stick with this method. Maybe there are more efficient ways of doing it, but I don't know. This method seems to work pretty well, and it seems effective. So, anyways, yeah, so is that everything? Not quite. There are quests now. I've implemented 1.5 quests, sort of. Let's just launch the game, actually. I'll just go show this in the game itself. So, there's this homeless looking guy here, who is a quest. I'm not going to talk to him just yet, because again, I don't want to show off any of that, any of the dialogue or anything like that yet, until the game is done, pretty much. However, one interesting thing is continuing to utilize the town crier, Joy, down here. So she's also been tied into this to these quests as well, serving the function that I want her to serve. So, what first we need to do is we need to rank up the town. So that's what this switch here is for, is to just quickly snap the community rank up. And it functions, the community rank calculation functions just like the level check calculations, where it only checks that community rank whenever you enter the town. It checks it and then it's gone. So you have to refresh the town for it to run that calculation again. So anyways, it should be at rank 2. And so if we go talk to Joy now down here. So previously I showed her function where she would tell you the current rank of the community. But also she has some dialogue to give players a hint on what they should do to improve the happiness of the town. So let's talk to her. So first, this is how you know what rank your community is at. So if I had to rate how happy the folks are on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say it's a 2. So we know that the community is currently at a rank 2. Then she also gives some suggestions, like I said, to tell the player like what to do to help rank up the town. So now she says, have you talked to poor Mallory? His family and my family used to get together during summers to play and drink lemonade. I think my dad said Mallory is a basshard. I'm not sure what a basshard is, but I think Mallory is still a good guy. He just needs something that will cheer him up first. So that kind of gives a hint as to something to help improve the town. So Mallory is the homeless NPC up here. So he's kind of been like, now there's a connection. So you see, you can talk to Joy to get hints about what to do. And so his quest has been sort of implemented. Like it's completable, I guess I should say. You can complete his quest. There is an introduction dialogue that just like you meeting Mallory. And then there is the setup for the quest, I guess you would say, where he kind of spills his guts, says why he's depressed, and basically gives hints. I don't want to ever just tell the player what you need to do. I hope that players will figure it out through the hints of what they express. They're spilling their guts for you. They're spilling their heart out for you. I hope you'll take the time to read what they have to say, and take that to heart and figure out what they need. At least in his case, I don't know if all the quests would be like that. There's another quest that might follow along that line. We'll get to that in just a minute. Anyways, for him, yeah. He gives you a hint about what you need, and then that's it. So I have already implemented the completion stage, which is basically you get if you have the item that he wants, the thing that will make him happy, then you'll get the rewards, but there's not any of the dialogue implemented yet. So it will complete the quest, but there won't be any of the actual heartfelt moments for completing the quest. So yeah, that one is done. Now, there's also a piece of one of the quests that I was working on earlier today, but it's not fully finished yet. So we need to rank the community up one more time. So let's do that. Refresh the community. Now you see this guy here, who is pacing around the entire town. And he just goes in circles. I might change his sprite too. This is just one of the default sprites that come with RPG Maker, but Mallory here, I use the NPC creator tool that's available in RPG Maker to make Mallory, and I may use that for him. I like the red hair and like the costume on the sprite, but his actual portrait, his picture, doesn't, I don't think represents him very well. So, yeah. So anyways, so he has been implemented. However, as I said with Mallory, there's kind of like an introduction and then sort of a setup for the quest, and then there's a completion for the quest. And I think, generally speaking, for some of the smaller, less important quests, like this guy here, I think, what is his name? Oh, I don't remember what I named him. It means reliable. All of their names have like a specific meaning. Like I looked, this is how I choose their name. I think of the word that represents their character, and then I just Google search names that mean this, and then I just find a name that has that meaning that sounds appropriate for the character. So his name means reliable. What is it? Bainon. Bainon. That's his name. Anyway, so Bainon here, I think, is also a lesser quest. So it'll probably have the same kind of arc where there's a meet the NPC, set up for what he needs, and then completion of the quest. But I've only done the introduction. So if you talk to him now, he'll introduce himself, kind of explain what his problem is, and then you'll have to come back to him later to actually receive the quest. So, yes. And like I said, the same thing for Mallory here as well. So, and I don't know. The shopkeeper's here. He has a name now. His name is Felix. Again, you should just look up the names. If you're like, oh, I wonder why he chose that name. Look up the meaning of the name and you'll get your answer. So yeah, there's Felix here. And, yep, he doesn't have any dialogue. He just exists. So, that's it. I don't think there's anything else to show. I should mention that so the way, I said that there's the 3 steps to the quest, or 3 stages, I guess. So the introduction happens at a certain community rank, but at least with Mallory, and will probably do this with Bainon as well, you cannot actually activate the quest. Like, you can't move on, you can't progress to the next step of the quest until your community is ranked up again. So one rank of the community is an introduction, the next rank of the community is starting the quest. And then the third part of the quest is not tied to the community at all. It's tied to whatever it is that you need to do to complete the quest. So, yeah, anyways. So, Mallory should be able to be completed now because I'm at rank 3. Because at rank... Wait, am I at rank 3? Yeah, I am at rank 3. No, rank 3? Rank 2. Rank 3. Yeah. I'd say it's a 3. If I had to rate how happy the folks are on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say it's a 3. And again, like I said, here's the hint system. Have you seen that guy racing around the city? He says he's the Imperial postman passing through the town. I think he thinks he's still working, but I'm pretty sure the Imperial post forgot about him. I actually feel a little sad for him. He might need someone to help him smile again once he finds out he isn't working anymore. So yeah. Mallory should be able to be completed at this point. Because at community rank 1, you can meet Mallory. And then at community rank 2, you can talk. Or you can start the quest with Mallory. So how long have I been talking for? Wow! 1 hour and 26 minutes. Yeah, well, I think that's gotten you guys caught up on everything that I've done. It's been a pretty busy week for the game. And for myself, not just for the game. I don't know how I managed to put in all the time that I did with this game. But somehow I've managed to put in a lot of time with the game. And also was busy with a lot of stuff this week. So... anyways, with that said, I guess we're not going to do anything on stream today. It's a good thing I didn't promise anything at the start of the stream. I was thinking about it. I was thinking about saying we might do some tiling at the coast, down south, going down south to the coast. Oh, it's going to start the tutorial. Never mind. I'm not going to go there. I thought we might do some tiling there, but actually, considering how long I spent talking, I guess I won't because I'm pretty tired. And I think it's best to stop the stream here. So, that's a progress update. Making some really good progress on it. This week, I officially passed the amount of time spent developing this game than it took to develop all of Fiddle in the Maker's Trial. Go check it out. It's free to play on itch.io. Free to download. Not really play. You don't play it in the browser. But anyways, free to download on itch.io. I spent about 110 hours developing Fiddle in the Maker's Trial, and so far I've spent about 120 hours developing this game. So yeah, this game has had more development hours put into it than my previous game. So yeah, and I'm making some good progress on it. I'm pretty happy. Also, that hour time isn't 100% accurate for both of the games. Because there's been a lot of time that I've spent working on music outside of RPG Maker or merging tile sets outside of RPG Maker. So that time spent doing that stuff has not been calculated into the time spent developing. So yeah. Anyways, good progress. And hopefully I'll have some more to show off next week. I have considered taking a short break, though, of development stuff. Well, maybe. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. Just because I don't really want to get burned out. So I have thought about possibly taking a short break on working on this to maybe go just play some games. I have a number of games I picked up during the winter sale on Steam that I still haven't played. So, maybe go play some games or whatever. So, yeah. We'll see. I've lately actually working on the quests and getting this level started. I've had a new spark of motivation within me, but again, we'll see how things go. I may change my mind, I may not. We'll tell within due time. So, anyways, thanks for joining me for another stream. Thanks for catching up with me on how the game development is going. Go check out my previous game, Fiddle in the Maker's Trial. It's free. Also, go check out my music. It's not free, but it's still really good. And subscribe. Join me next time. I'll be here next week, probably. I think so. I'll be here next week. So anyways,